everyone, I hope you're well and having a good day. I'm excited today to be joined by Essity. So Essity is a leading global hygiene and health company dedicated to improving well-being through their products and solutions, basically the essentials of everyday life. You may not have heard of the name Essity before, but you'll have certainly heard of their brands. Some of their brands include Plenty, Cushelle, Bodyform and Actimove. Right, so breaking news now, guys. We've had a couple of webinars in the last few weeks and the roles haven't been open because they'll be open in the autumn, but Essity is live with 2 of their graduate programmes. So their Go graduate programme, or Go graduate programme if people are not from Yorkshire and can't understand Go, are accepting all STEM disciplines, and their process engineering programme will accept applications from chemical, process and mechanical engineering disciplines. So make sure you go to the Essity Hub on GradCracker and get your applications in. The first closing date that we're working towards is the 11th of April, so there really is no time to waste. Right, back to the webinar and a did you know session now, that the name Essity stems from the word essentials and necessities. Essity. I didn't know that before this webinar, so I thought that I'd chuck that in there. So hopefully this webinar will give you an insight into what life is like as a graduate at Essity and also what the future could hold in store for you. So make sure you do your research. Their hub includes lots of great information, specifically a page called Why Choose Essity, which mentions about, as a STEM graduate, the roles that you can go into. Anything from engineering to R&D and even sales. With offices in over 60 countries, there definitely will be a position available for you. The hub also includes a benefits page detailing all the key benefits that you will receive as a STEM graduate. Examples include flexible working, wellbeing incentives and competitive rewards. And the exciting news is that Essity will be in the GradCracker 5-year club next year, which means over the last couple of years, like 5 years, they've been advertising on GradCracker. So that's definitely a time that we'll be excited about. So now I'd like to introduce you to the panel. I'm going to go off script a little bit here. Ruth, I was going to say Ruth, the Talent Acquisition Country Manager, but Ruth, the world famous, has appeared on Channel 5 lunch programme. They've joined us and got the privilege, so thank you, Ruth, for taking the time from commercial television to be on the GradCracker webinar.
Hello.
Come on, Ruth, don't say so. Hello. So Ruth, sounds like Monty Don then. Ruth, tell us about yourself and describe your role within Essity.
So my title is, as you say, Talent Acquisition Country Manager, and I've been doing this particular role with Essity for about the last 3 years. Prior to that, I had various HR manager positions within the company, mainly at various manufacturing sites across the northwest of the UK. So I've been with the company nearly 10 years now, coming up to 10 years. So I've had some good opportunities to move around and develop my career within the company.
And I'm guessing this is your favourite role so far, Ruth?
Absolutely, it's my favourite role. Yeah, no, it's great. It's particularly great to attract people to the company, get our message out there, particularly as Essity changed its name 3 years ago. Prior to that, we were called SCA, and it's a lot of work around letting people know what Essity is all about, what we have to offer as a company, and then hopefully attracting people to apply for particular roles, particularly at young professionals in our graduate scheme and also our apprenticeship schemes. So, I really enjoy that aspect of the role.
Yeah, and I remember, Ruth, when you first started at Essity, I first started at GradCracker. So we've both been there 10 years, and obviously Jess has done 10 years as well at GradCracker, haven't you? Exciting times. Right, let's meet the graduates. So we're joined by Sam, who studied biochemistry at Swansea, Garry, who studied biomedical sciences at Manchester, and Zainab, who studied chemical engineering at Bradford, which is my hometown, so shout out to Bradford. I'm very excited. This webinar will hopefully give you, the audience, into an insight into the different avenues a STEM degree can take you. And today we're focusing on the fast-moving consumer goods sector. So what does that actually mean? The fast-moving consumer goods industry covers the household items that you buy when shopping in the supermarket. Fast-moving implies that the items are quick to leave the shelves and also tend to be in high volume but low in cost. These products are the essential items, Essity, that we use every single day. And this multi-million-pound sector holds some of the most famous brands that will come to you and that you will use every single day of your lives. So let's go on and meet the panel.
Brilliant, thanks Carla. So as Carla mentioned, you all have a background in STEM. I am interested to know why you initially chose to study the degree you did at university, and then why you chose to not kind of continue in that particular career path and change slightly. So Sam, coming to you.
Brilliant. Well, I actually did natural sciences in my first year. So I've spent a year abroad studying a broad range of scientific subjects like computer science, physics, and of course biochemistry. And then for my second and third year, I spent that at Swansea University, partially for the beach, partially for the course. And there I really obviously I was really interested in the subject at the time, just because to me, it sounded really interesting to know about all these little processes happening inside your cells and how they contribute to the body as a whole. But on the flip side, as you said, I got a first-hand experience of kind of what I didn't really want to do in a career that would be followed by a standard biochemist. It would have been either academia or lab work, which for me, to be frank, just seemed dull. So that's the frank word about it. It just seemed kind of dull to me, and I started looking for other opportunities. I also finished my bachelor last year, and I didn't want to continue studying. I didn't want to continue losing money. So here I am on this Grad Cracker webinar. So.
Brilliant. Well, thanks, Sam. It's a good point. This is, Garry, I'm sure you're going to kind of second that in terms of what you've done so far, but it's interesting to know there is so many different routes that you can go into, even to do something like you did, Sam. So Garry, you had a similar story as well, don't you?
Yeah, pretty close actually in terms of logic and reasoning. So I did biomedical science in Manchester. Prior to that, I think a lot of people will be in the same boat. Zainab might even be able to relate with this, that in school you tend to get corralled into the more STEM science subjects. I see some nods there. Yeah, so they tend to corral you into the maths and science regions. And if you're unsure of where you want to go, you tend to go towards one of these STEM fields because you know that the options are there. And so I followed that line of logic. And I think within my course of around 200 students, a lot of us had a similar mentality, not really knowing where we're going to end up afterwards. The fun thing is that a lot of us actually went into fields that weren't related to our actual degree. So as Sam would say, we typically would go to academia, and same for biomedical sciences. It would be lab work afterwards. So after I graduated, I did try accounting, recruitment, and I even did a bit of nursing assisting to see if the healthcare science would be the kind of line you'd want to go. But yeah, there's a lot of different kind of avenues you can take, and I think it depends more on your soft skills and your interests in the softer side. And yeah, it's a good thing that Grad Cracker are doing this kind of awareness for the STEM students, because there's a lot of paths you can take, and the last path I'm currently on obviously is Essity, and I suppose we're going to explore that in a bit, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for that, Garry. Zainab, you studied chemical engineering.
Yes.
You are now a process engineer at Essity.
Yes.
What is your role and what are your responsibilities?
So I am currently a process engineer on a conventional tissue machine in Prudhoe. So the machine that I am working on currently produces tissue for many well-known brands such as Velvet and Cushelle. Right. Generally, I am responsible for making changes and any adjustments to the machine. So for example, if I want to modify the sheet's properties, I would be involved in that. As well as this, I am heavily involved in carrying out trials and projects. So for example, the most recent trial that I have done involves a furnish change. So a furnish is like, you can think of it like a recipe behind a certain product. So what I've done is I changed this recipe, and then from this I
completed a trial report to make sure that there wasn't actually any negative impact on the actual product itself or on the machine as well. Apart from this, I'm also responsible for troubleshooting, because this is an important part of being a process engineer if there is a process issue within the machine. So for example, let's say with your water treatment, for example, I will be responsible in fault finding and generally finding the root cause of that problem and addressing it and implementing any solutions to rectify this. So in a nutshell, that's it.
How often would you say that you change your product's recipe as such? You know, is that something that you constantly looking to achieve, or is it like every couple of years? How does that work?
I mean, it just depends on the current situation. So obviously we need to maintain our product quality. That is the most important thing from a commercial side. However, sometimes when on site we used recycled pulp, and sometimes it's so your furnish will depend on the stock levels that you have. So for example, we have a lot of recycled stock on site which needs to be used up, and this can't be shipped to other sites, because then that would be an on cost for this site over here. So of course there'll be concessions in place, and there are data reviews constantly happening, and anything to mitigate the effect of the overall product. So it doesn't tend to happen that often, but if it does, it's well within reason.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility already then in your role.
Yeah, definitely. From the get-go, it was responsibility from day one, I'd say.
Brilliant, that's great. Carla mentioned at the beginning, the Essity graduate programs are live, and obviously they're all open on the company hub on GradCracker. So any students that are listening to this session, you know, as soon as we finish, make sure you get onto the hub and get applying for these exciting roles. Ruth, please can you tell us a bit about the application process this year? So, you know, has it been affected by COVID? Are you going maybe more to remote kind of interviews and things like that? What's it all looking like? What can students expect?
I mean, year on year, we always look at our process and learn from the previous year. So we had quite a lot, even pre-COVID, we had quite a lot that was done online and digitalized. Last year's process, when all these guys were recruited, we obviously had to react to the COVID situation quite quickly. So we had to do a lot of interviews virtually. So that was really the big game changer for us, was doing all the interviews virtually. Indeed, Garry and Sam, I don't think you've ever been into an office yet, have you? So, and you joined us in September, so you haven't actually physically met your managers face to face as yet. So we've done all the recruitment and onboarding virtually. So for this year, going back to your question, for this year, it's going to be a very similar thing. We have tweaked things a little bit. Our online assessment for the Go graduate is a little bit different this year. So it's a bit more gamification. But generally, the process is for the Go graduate program, apply, there's an initial shortlist. People that pass that initial shortlist go through to the gamification. If they get a good result from that, then they're progressed to a recorded interview. So they're sent a set of questions, and they record themselves answering those. That's then assessed, and those that come out from that are then interviewed virtually on a face-to-face basis over a two-stage program, two stages of interview. So there are quite a number of stages to the Go graduate program.
Yeah.
With the process engineer recruitment, it is slightly more streamlined because it is just a slightly different program that we run. So very similar to what Zainab had last year, we did again applying through our website and uploading your CV. Then from that shortlist, we will then do recorded interviews, and then from that go straight to the face-to-face two-stage interview process. So it just takes out the gamification aspect of it.
Okay. Ruth, can I ask a question? Why do you call it the Go graduate program? Why is it Go?
So the Go graduate program refers to graduate onboarding. So that's the Go.
Yeah.
And it's a program that is really looking at, it's an opportunity for people to come on board that then have a global networking opportunity with other graduates around the world. So the global element is doing these networking opportunities with other graduates that are taken on through that Go program. Gradually, other departments are doing their own graduate programs, so Zainab coming on as what we call GETS program, which is the graduate engineering training. That is done much more on one site because the machinery is so complex, and I'm sure that Zainab will back me up on that. It really takes the 2-year initial program to just get your head around one paper machine almost, doesn't it?
Yep.
And so that element of rotation is difficult to build in, so that's why we do a slightly different one for our process engineers. But there are still opportunities to network globally within the manufacturing element of the business. So different graduate programs do things very slightly different, but essentially our focus is on succession planning and looking at how we can bring in younger people or people that have graduated, got that graduate qualification, to ensure the longevity of the business going forward.
And I think this ties in, Ruth, as well, with, like, for you, for example, who, you know, is responsible for all the recruitment and you know, the recruitment manager aspect of your role. Why is it so important to Essity and to you to recruit STEM students and from a STEM background?
I mean, some are very obvious. So a process engineer, we would want that engineering background. So that they're quite an obvious sort of fit and need for that skill and knowledge already. I guess what we look in, if I can just keep with the engineering side of things for a minute, I guess what we also look for, because there's lots of people coming out of university with an engineering qualification. So we're kind of also looking for interests that people have, or work experience that they've gained, or industrial placements. So if people have those, then that almost allows them, you know, to sit above other graduates that maybe don't have that and just have a pure engineering qualification and nothing else. So it is important, particularly for graduates, if they're thinking of an engineering career, it's really important to consider, actually, do I want to do that industrial placement year, or be prepared to do some work experience when you've graduated initially, to get that on your CV, because that will make you stand out a little bit more from others that haven't got that. So that's from the going into an engineering career. If you're like Garry and Sam and actually move into a sales role, for example, we both Garry and Sam work in our medical division. So we're talking to NHS trusts, we're talking to clinicians, we're talking to people who have that medical science, biology background. So if graduates have that as a basis of understanding, we can teach them the sales skills if they've got the passion and interest to do that. But that background knowledge, I think, and hopefully Garry and Sam, you agree with me, is invaluable in that sort of base understanding of the background to our products and those conversations that you're having with our customers.
Yeah, thanks, Ruth. I think that leads nicely on to Garry and Sam, just to go through. I know we've spoke to you, Zainab, about your roles and responsibilities and everything else. And so should we go to Garry? Do you want to go through what your role actually entails and how your STEM background helps you in your current role?
Yeah, sure. So the thing with the Grow program is, because it's a rotation and placement based, it's very different, and you can't say that it's defined. That's why I think Ruth in the interview process was actually quite fluffy about the details, and I didn't understand until I got in that it's fluffy because it's actually on the go. It's very dynamic, and Sam will have a completely different experience than I would. But I suppose relevant to mine's very much a support role at the moment, because we are facing regional problems and issues of entry, of access, and so it's very much a support role for me. And so I try to let's say collate information, some data analysis, presentations, and then I could present that to the clients or the customers. And sometimes they're just educational. So in relation to my actual STEM background, let's say for the last meeting I had, one of the questions that was asked by one of the clients or one of the customers was, how does silver resistance actually work? So it's very much not something that you associate in your mind with the sales role. It's very much more in that science or that biomedical kind of practice. And I think Sam would have the same experience. But because it is a medical sales job, a lot of the questions and kind of queries that we'll have to learn how to tackle and have to consult others on will be really on that technical side of things.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of that kind of background knowledge that you won't necessarily know from your degree, but you'll know bits and bobs of it enough to pick up on. And then later on, when you get those technical questions, you'll be able to tackle it with the added sales training that you'll get over the 2 years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thanks, Garry.
Mm.
And Sam? Sorry, Jess.
Yeah.
Sam, you go
Just
first.
Just to follow off what Garry said, I think you made a really good point there, because I think with a STEM background, it's more about, you know, the way that you think about things. It's the way that you think about the information that you process and then kind of regurgitate it to, say, someone you're presenting to or someone you're writing to in an email. So I think that was a really good point. But yeah, in terms of my responsibilities and my role, it's fairly varied. I wouldn't say like every day can be different in terms of like the amount of work I have to do or the number of customers that call me. I mean, I constantly have my phone by my side, and you know, as you saw just before this grad cracker meeting, you know, I get a call from a bloody customer. So like some days can be quiet and sometimes I can be back in a corner with everyone just asking me questions. But yeah, there's also quite a lot of independence, I think. You know, I mean, I don't know if Garry has had a similar experience, but 100%, I don't feel like I'm being micromanaged at all by my superiors. I feel like I can get on with my own work, and I've been given a sense of responsibility, which is basically just to increase sales and develop business in the territories that I'm working in. And taking business from our competitors as well, which is always fun. And yeah, and also a supporting role, so supporting customers with any queries about our products. So, you know, you can get the most random questions, you know, about products like, oh, should my patients sign this prescription? And then I'm like, yeah, maybe they should. Like,
wow.
Maybe I can help you. I don't know if I can help you with that, but yeah, it's no day is the same. No day is the same, I will say, is my main point from that.
Yeah. Before we move back onto Zainab, how, you know, sales, I work in sales and I've worked in sales for quite a while now. How cutthroat is it? Because I think some of the students who are watching, you know, might think, oh, I'd love to come away from my degree, you know, use it, but, you know, not stay in it, and be involved in things like sales. You know, it's an exciting world. But if I was a student listening, I think, oh, do I have to hit targets? You know, am I really accountable for those targets? And I would be, you know, a little bit worried about that. So how kind of cutthroat is the sales aspect to your roles?
Just to add that, I think there's a bit of a stereotype as well when you're a salesperson, don't you? You think of, you know, the slick back hair and, you know, a suit or whatever, and you know, it might be an old-fashioned
Go on, Garry.
Okay.
It's not the Wolf of Wall Street, don't worry. It's not like the Wolf of Wall Street.
Sometimes there is that, you know, that, you know, you've got to be that kind of person, but do you have to be that kind of person, Sam?
You just have to be resilient. That's all. As long as you're resilient, then you can work in sales, in my opinion. What else was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, at least in this company, they will, you know, they really ease you into it, in terms of your progression and development, and your, you know, it's not like they'll throw you in front of a tissue viability nurse on your first day. And like, you know, me and Garry, we had our ITC, which lasted for 4 weeks, even before we could do any work. So it's very much a slow process. And it's the whole point about the grad scheme, you know, it's 2 years of this, and then we can progress to actually, you know, working in sales or whatever job we decide to take within the company. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. But
ITC?
I think, sorry?
ITC?
Oh, an ITC, sorry, that was it's like a training course. So a 4-week training course where we learn about the company and all the products that we have to sell.
Cool.
Yeah.
And everybody goes through that. So even
Yeah.
experienced sales professionals joining mid-career or managers, they all go through that same training program, because it's so important that everyone understands the product portfolio before they go out and meet any customer.
Can I just chime in on that? Jessica, I'm just chiming into Jessica's question for Sam, because she mentioned the stereotypes with the sales. During my interview process, one of the national managers, Chris George.
Big up Chris George. He's Welsh. I love him. He's Welsh, so I love him.
he told me that if I was a type to sell my own grandma for a raise, I'm not going to get the job. So in terms of that Wolf of Wall Street kind of mentality, they openly tell you that if you have something a bit too aggressive, you're not going to even get in, because it's it is a medical and hygiene kind of taking care of others kind of field. I think I have worked in sales field that are like that, but it's very different with each industry. I think that's something that people have to keep in mind, that every industry is very different in the way they tackle their jobs.
And I think Essity globally have an approach. Yes, of course we aim to get sales growth, of course we do, but it's also about the long term, and customer relationship building is so important. So when we're recruiting, including at the graduate level, we're recruiting around those attributes about communication, listening, supporting, and being able to develop relationships with people, and how graduates can demonstrate that, because that's equally as important as well as getting the sale, because it's the after sale care as well. And Sam's touched on that when he's taking all sorts of questions.
Well, just to give Carla a bit of a compliment here, because I always say Carla's the best salesperson I've ever met, but I think the reason why she is because she doesn't sell, she just looks after her customers. I'm sure Ruth, you can second me on this. She looks after all our employers on GradCrack, and you do such a good job. You don't sell to them, you just look after them. And I think that's quite a good point, isn't it? If you just look after, give the client what they want, what they need, and then you don't have to convince them about anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Big me up, Ruth.
No, I totally agree. Not just in relation to GradCracker, but within Essity as well. It's very much a culture. We have 4 beliefs and behaviors that are very integrated into every aspect, whether you're in global manufacturing or sales or HR, wherever, and everything's built up around those 4 beliefs and behaviors around care, commitment, courage, and collaboration. And we're, as part of our appraisal process as well, and our personal development plans are built up around those. So and I think that's reflective of the type of culture that we have at Essity, in that it's not all about the hard sell or getting the product out at the cheapest price regardless of quality. We want to look after our customers, we care for our customers, and we want the best quality product. And if that costs a little bit more to produce, or it costs a little bit more in terms of our time in working out the best ingredients for that product, then we will invest in that, and we will invest in the right machinery to do that. And similarly in sales, we will spend the time not only selling to our customers, but training them on our products as well. So we employ qualified nurses to go out and actually train the clinicians on how best to use products within the portfolio around incontinence care, or in the skincare product range, or whatever it may be, that we will do that training, that after sales care.
Cool. Thanks, Ruth. I think we've spoken to the boys a lot about the sales element of the role. Zainab, I'm just looking at your little face there with your high vis, and I'm like, I want to get so I think we're going to talk to you about training development. Obviously, we've touched upon all the different areas of this, but specifically to you, Zainab, your role so far, your journey so far at Essity, from a personal point of view, what training have you enjoyed the most, and what do you feel like you've gained from that training?
So I've been here for about a year now, and I would say that I've had already many learning opportunities and also the required support to go with it. I think although the graduates can also agree that when you come in, you need time invested in you and the training to go along with that in order for you to develop and learn in order to become better at your job, basically. So straight away from the get-go, I was assigned a buddy, and she was also an ex-graduate, and she's been here for 10 years now and is now the process leader of the machine. So I think that's been very valuable to me, because she's first-handedly has gone through that experience, and she's been able to provide me with a lot of guidance and general advice as well. So it's not just someone who I'm working with, but someone who, it's like having a friend who can just talk you through things, and it does make things easier. After 3 months as well, I was given practical training, so I went on shift. So what I mean by when I went on shift is that I worked with the actual operators and learnt their jobs, learnt a bit more about the machine. I would say that this was probably my favorite part, I think, because it was ultimately a completely different experience. When you're in the office, it's a different environment. Understanding how the machine works and how to operate the machine are two completely separate things. So I think being able to get that practical knowledge and also learn a bit more about the machine itself. I mean, like Ruth said before, there's so much to learn. It's actually unbelievable. When I came here, it was like, how am I going to learn all of this? But I think that's what makes it so exciting as well. So that's definitely probably the most enjoyable part as well. As also part of my training, I have regular one-to-ones with my manager as well. So that's good, because we focus on my development areas and we set goals for myself, which are reviewed monthly, ending with an annual review as well, where your performance is kind of rated, and you talk about the next year and your goals. So I think that's good, because you have a transparent relationship as well. So anything that you want, you can just ask, and it's literally as simple as that, and you do get it. I mean, because I've been here for about a year, I think I would like to go on shift again, because now I know so much more about the machine. It would be a completely different experience from someone who's just come in and been here for a couple of months. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, really
so great, because I just think you know, would you imagine when you're at uni, someone saying, "Oh, you're going to be working shifts, you're going to be working on these machines, it's going to be so hands-on, and then to top it off, you're going to love it. It's going to probably be the best part of your experience you've ever had." And I just think that it's so great. You know, like how when you're at university sometimes, and this is what I try and say to the students when I'm talking to them, you know, sometimes what you think you want to necessarily what you end up doing and what you actually enjoy and the experience you get are complete worlds apart. You know, like everything you've just said then, could you imagine, you know, me telling you 2 or 3 years ago, this is what you're gonna love?
No, to be honest, I wouldn't have believed it. I mean, before this, I worked in aerospace, so I worked at a Safran, and I thought I was genuinely going to love that, because you're working on aircraft components. I mean, that's amazing. But honestly, it was very dull, to be quite blunt with you. I mean, no disrespect to any aerospace engineers that might be watching this, but I think a positive that came from it, I really developed my passion for manufacturing, and I just realized that I wanted a fast-paced environment, but it took me from working in that environment to realize that. But I mean, if you want to work in a fast-paced environment, this is your place to be.
Brilliant. Win-win.
No looking back then.
Yes.
I'd echo that as well, because I talked to quite a lot of students in pre-COVID times when we were going around career fairs, and people, you know, they'd obviously recognise our brands in Cushelle toilet roll, for example, and think it's quite a small machine that this stuff comes from. And to be honest, before I started working for Essity, I never gave it a second thought what type of machinery was used to make toilet roll. And actually then when people come on site and do the site tour, and they realize that one paper machine can fill up a massive sports hall, height, length, width, and the complexities in the process, It's unbelievable, and that's what really then excites people, because especially engineers, because they're like, oh my god, you know, I can't wait to get in on that. And make changes and tinker and make continuous improvement suggestions and everything. So and I think that's the surprise that people have with Essity. Yes, it's FMCG, so it is, you know, continuously looking what customer demands are, how we can meet those customer demands. I mean, exactly a year ago, we had no toilet roll on the shelves, did we?
Well, so was just nothing on the shelves.
So Prudhoe, where Zainab is based, you know, working absolutely flat out to make sure that, you know, the supply chain was there, and they've been continuing all the way through the COVID period as well. You know, we haven't had to stop production in any area in terms of supplying the customers and what they need, but it's keeping up with the customer demands change. Zainab's talked about, you know, the makeup of the product that will change, you know, that's constantly being reviewed to look at how we can provide things that are, you know, more sustainable, the packaging, everything that makes up that product we buy from a shelf. We're constantly looking at, and Zainab's role is so important in that as well. And that's why we take on on graduates, because graduates come in with that graduate knowledge, that technical awareness that they've learned at university, come in with a fresh pair of eyes, are amazed at the machinery, and really have a passion to make things better for us and for them and their career development.
We really just want to get stuck in, to be honest.
Oh, that's really good. But you know, is it a little bit daunting that you're? Sorry, I'm tucking my legs in now. I'm getting right into this webinar. Is it a little bit daunting, Bridgerton? Is it a little bit daunting, though, Zainab, if you're working on this machine that you're working on at the moment, to work on that for the rest of your life? No, or do you get to experience different machines? You know, what is it actually like there for your future?
Thing is, and I understand your point, but I think what people don't realize is there is so much to learn on one machine, and I don't think anyone can say I know it all. I don't think I'll ever get there, because that point it's just not possible, because there's that much to learn. And it might sound very cliche, but honestly, it's one of the things that surprised me as well. I thought I would know the process inside and out within a year, and honestly, I couldn't be more wrong than I am. So I think in terms of moving the problem is, if you go from one machine to another, you would have to start again, because no two machines are the same, your processes aren't the same, the machinery is also completely different, so it's not like for like at all. So I think especially working on a tissue machine, there's always things to do, and that's why you'll never get bored. I mean, I'm here after a year, and honestly, it's so fun.
Oh,
I've got a whole new respect for tissues now, to be quite honest.
I didn't know how much was involved.
The tissues.
I think as well, you know, there are process engineers that have remained pretty much on one paper machine their whole career, and they've done 30-40 years with us, and you know, still loving it and still learning, and that's fantastic. But there are opportunities also to cross over and do work on different machines, work up through the engineering team, as it were, and take on management roles or project roles, and that can develop into a global opportunities as well. So I think that's what's so great about Essity. You do have that choice. You either become an expert in and stay where you are and really thrive in that, or you can thrive in other disciplines or interests that you have. If you want to go into management, then there is a whole support around that management development as well.
I think what's great, though, like Zainab, you said about it earlier on in the webinar, about, you know, your mentor, who's now your friend, that lady, you know, you're going to be that lady in, you know, 5-6 years time. So you're going to be helping graduates who come in with the business.
Yeah,
and
I hope so.
That mentor as well. So that should be nice.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, she's been here for such a long time, and honestly, when I speak to her about just being on one machine, and she says the exact same thing, you can see it. I think when you see it firsthand, you understand, but you won't get to that point until you actually work here.
Yeah. Ruth, I think we need some pictures of these machines on your hub. I think that's the size of a sports hall.
Yeah.
Well, some of your viewers watching this Grad Cracker post, that they might have seen our Manchester site, which was on inside the factory.
Yes.
So that's exactly the same. They've just got one paper machine there. Prudhoe have 2 paper machines, so it's a bigger site. But that will give them an idea of what it's all about in terms of I mean, paper machines run faster than cars can go on a motorway, and it's a 3 second from wet to dry end, something like that. So the 99% wet mulch at one end comes out in a big 2-ton toilet roll at the other end. That takes 3 seconds, and that all the engineering that is required in that 3-second process is amazing. So yeah, you can't really describe it.
What I'd like to know, though, I used to work in at a local newspaper, and the press hall where they used to make the papers, the smell, I loved the smell. Zainab, does it smell nice in that factory?
That's debatable, to be honest.
I did work for a plastic manufacturer at one point, and I tell you, paper is much nicer smell than plastic. So,
yeah.
Okay.
And it also depends on the type of pulp that you're using as well, and it also depends on how old the stock is within your system, because that will all affect your smell as well.
That's true.
Quite complex. Right, Jess, we're going to go to projects.
Yes, let's. So, could you all tell me about one of your favourite projects that you've been involved in so far? Starting with you, Garry.
Oh, it's me. Wait. Favorite projects. I've been involved with a few. I'm not sure if I can outline one as a favorite project. As I said, Birmingham has been quite sealed off because of COVID. Obviously, it's a pandemic going on, and Birmingham being the size it is, with the number of patients we've been having in the hospitals, because it is very much, the medical side especially, is very patient focused. So it's been very sealed off at the moment. I can tell you the future ones, but right now in Birmingham, the most I've done, or most of the projects I've been doing, is really just collating information, analyzing the sales data, and creating the presentations. There's been a few of training the nurses on how to use these, and they've been interesting because we've had to actually shift the process from what it was face-to-face before, and then integrating that into a Zoom meeting like this with everyone in a circle and me or one of our teams trying to show the garments or the dressings around. So I suppose the shift in the way we do things is interesting. But I suppose in terms of projects, I think you'd be better off with Sam on that one.
Oh. God.
Sam wasn't ready for that.
Oh, shit.
Good transition there, Garry. That was good.
I know.
Very good.
You've already slid
And
it on.
here it is.
What I was just going to say though, what an interesting time to be working with those people in the midst of a pandemic.
Absolutely.
It must be quite, the conversations you're having and everything else. It's a bit unprecedented at the moment, I guess.
Yeah. It's really strange as well, because from our side, we're all working from home, and they have their masks on. I feel rude not having a mask on at home. Right?
Oh my God. Yeah, because they all turn up with masks, and I'm like, oh wait, where's mine?
Exactly.
Like, oh wait, I'm in my own house. That's all good.
Oh. Go on then, Sam. Tell me about your favourite projects.
Same as Garry, to be fair. I don't actually have probably a favourite one, although a lot of my time has been taken up by work I'm doing in Kent. It's quite interesting actually, because our company, Jobs, the compression company or brand, shares a formulary with a competitor, a new formulary with a competitor, Medi, that you may or may not have heard of. And we are tasked with basically training up all the nurses in Kent. And if you think about Kent, it's a massive area. Yeah. On the new garments on this formulary. So that, I mean, yeah, it's been an interesting one, I will say. I think this year, January, I had a list of practices in Kent, and it was just smile and dial. Just smile and dial. Y'all need to be trained on these garments. You need to be trained, and then just booking in meetings. Sorry?
What you mean about training them on the garments? What does that actually mean? Sorry.
It essentially means it's just a way to book in a meeting. Basically, it's saying like, we need to train you on these garments, so we need to book in a virtual session to discuss the new garments on this formulary, blah blah blah. And then once you get them in, you kind of convert it more to like a sales call. So not entirely sales, but you kind of do a bit of probing. You know, you ask them about what their needs are, and then you try and find a way to support their needs in that call. So it's kind of more than training in a way. It's actually solving their specific issues that they have. So it's not like, oh, we just turn up and, it's not like death by PowerPoint where we just turn up and chat about all these garments and then say goodbye, which some other companies do. But yeah, it's just been a lot of that, a lot of training on the new garments, and a lot of the times, they'll come to us and say, wait, so some of these garments on the formulary, they're not actually suitable for some of our patients. And then we say, well, we're booking a new meeting, 2 weeks down the line, and we'll discuss wraps or made to measure, which are other types. So there's a lot to do.
So a garment could be like a bandage, face mask. What could a garment actually be?
A garment is basically a medical device that you use to reduce chronic edema. So sometimes you see runners using them. Quite often you see runners wearing compression garments sometimes, but normally you'll put on if you have chronic edema or a venous leg ulcer, you'll have some kind of compression garments on to reduce that edema that increases the chances of a venous leg ulcer occurring. God, I'm going back into my mode now. Chat. Right, yeah.
I think the point is though that there's a lot on the portfolio, and garments are used for different situations with different
100%
different patients, and the different healthcare providers, whether it be doctor surgery or acute care in hospitals, will want different products within that portfolio, because they'll be dealing with different severities of that condition as well, won't they?
Yeah, and there's so many, just take the jobs portfolio. There's so many of them. When I first looked at them 6 months ago, I was like, oh my God, like, similar to a Zainab with the machine and everything. So many products, so many iterations on the same product. You can kind of build a bit of empathy. Well, myself being new, I build a bit of empathy with the nurses when we come to them and talk to them about all these random garments and everything. You can understand that they might be confused. So you can kind of, I don't think exploit is the right word, but you can kind of, use that to your advantage and make sure that you can justify training them, if that makes sense. Yeah,
especially because you're taking their time as well, I suppose, aren't you? I mean, they're already, NHS at the moment with everything that they're going through, understaffed and everything else, and obviously the stress levels of the NHS at the moment are, up here.
It's very high.
Guessing, definitely. So I'm guessing you need to make good use out of their time as well, and make sure you 100%. Are really responding to their needs and requirements.
Yeah, always ask how long a customer has to talk to you. That's the first thing you always ask. And then everything should be fine after that.
So next, I want to kind of ask you all about the social aspect and what you've enjoyed so far as part of being on the graduate programme at Essity. Have you had anything outside of your role, that you've enjoyed? Or I know it's difficult when we've done it all remotely. Virtual events or anything like that. Sam, how about you?
I mean, it would be so good if we could all like meet up in real life. Like, I'm so excited to meet everyone that I've met virtually in this company in real life, but obviously it hasn't happened yet. There isn't. I don't know if Garry can help me. I don't know if there was any. We have conferences. We have virtual conferences, which are quite fun. Which you watch quite a few presentations, probably 9 to 5 presentations, and then you go into little breakout rooms and talk about random subjects that are completely irrelevant to the business. But yeah, those are normally good times, because I think for us, like for me also, we're kind of separated into regions. So I'm in region 4, Garry's in region 3, I think, and we kind of don't really mix too much like across regions. So it's always good to have these conferences so we can like merge
I think for
together.
our side, there are a few different ways to answer that. I think definitely before the whole COVID thing hit, I think when Ruth and I first started speaking, there was on the table this prospect of all the graduates globally meeting up in Sweden, and that was the big thing that I think we lost last year.
Yeah.
All of us are quite excited for that one.
I know.
I think at the same time, they're finding ways to kind of change around it, because obviously the social aspect, the job feeling like a team, is a big important kind of aspect in actually working together. So for example, my region now, I've just switched into a different region up north, and in 2 weeks time we have an event for Bacon Boogie. So Rose has set up, so anyone that can actually attend, keeping in mind that if it doesn't impact their actual day-to-day work, anyone that can attend from the region will go on this big meeting, virtual meeting, of course, and we'll all be in our kitchens baking a little cake. So
So good.
What? But I think each little region's finding their own ways to actually socialize. It's not the same as it is normally, what I gather, but I think everyone is trying to make it as social as possible and actually build those bonds.
Oh, that's good.
You mentioned,
have you had any kind of virtual experience?
Before we go into Zainab, Jess, regions, Garry, what do you mean by regions?
Right. So the company, one of the nice things about the company, I think Sam will agree with this. I'm not sure about Zainab down in Prideaux. I've only just heard of Prideaux today. But I think one of the nicest things about the company, because it's such a large company, it holds a lot of different brands, and you'd think that it's one of those things that you'll tend to become a number in. I think they combat it in a really nice way where everyone still feels like a very small, compact team. And the 100%. Reason for that is because everything's really streamlined into a different path. So for example, the medical side, and then the Cushelle side, all of that, the torque side, everything's very much in its own little path. We have conferences to actually meet up and talk about our strategies globally and nationally every now and then. But on a whole, Sam and I will only see, let's say, 10 other members of the team. So Region 1, which is what I'm in now, would be the north. So that would cover Scotland, Ireland, and a bit of Leeds. I'm not sure how far it goes down. Region 3, for example, would be more...
and a bit of Leeds.
That's an interesting...
the northern part of England,
Do you mean Newcastle?
Scotland and a bit of Leeds.
I think it's from Scotland to Leeds, but the north is quite sparse. So the regions are based on population. I know it sounds a bit silly, but I think the regions are based on population sizes and not actual geographical maps. But because they're so segmented, every region is a little bit of a family in its own right. So completely different dynamics. You'll enter it and you'll feel like you've entered a different family, and they've all known each other for years and years. And so it's really quite cute, and everything feels small but big at the same time.
Oh, thanks, Garry. Sorry, Zainab, I interrupted Jess then. But
no, it's
fine. I think Ruth was going to speak then, but I don't know if we lost you, Ruth.
You're on mute.
You on mute?
No, she's
on mute.
She's not on mute anymore. But
I don't think so. We've lost you.
Headset has run out.
I mean, my internet was a bit weird just for about 1 minute or so. Not sure.
Back now. Yeah, but I don't know where Ruth is.
We'll come.
Yeah,
we'll come back to Ruth. Zainab, shall we speak? Ruth can have a fiddle. Zainab, we're going to ask.
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry.
Forget headphones. Go back to the traditional way. I can't remember what I was going to say now. I think, oh yes, because medical division is split. They're all working from home, or the vast majority of the medical division work from home. So that's why they sort of geographically form these sort of hubs, as it were, to make sure that they're keeping in contact with people and people feel included in things, and they're not left.
It's really important. Really important.
Thanks, Ruth. And Zainab, I think we're going to talk about because you're actually, on the shop floor, as it were, at the moment, aren't you? So if you can, what social activities have you been part of, or are you looking forward to when lockdown restrictions have been lifted?
Yeah, this question's quite difficult. I mean, I'm very grateful that I've been in the office ever since I've started, but I mean, ever since I have started, COVID's been around. So, I mean, we have planned things, but unfortunately, they've just been cancelled. But I mean, I know that there is something to look forward to, which is a good thing. But unfortunately, I can't comment too much about that because I haven't been a part of any.
I think that's a good point. We've all still got a lot to look forward to.
Yeah,
very true.
Steps, but it's gonna be even better when you all meet each other face.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Give everyone a big hug and Can't wait.
I'm looking forward to giving you a hug, Jessica.
Oh, the enthusiasm there.
We're best friends on the outside, well, Sam, don't worry. She would touch my face like that. So I think we're going to move on to one exciting fact about Essity.
Yes.
I'm going to start with, who we're going to start with? I want a normal one. Zainab.
Right.
One
Okay.
exciting fact.
Essity will be the first tissue facility in Europe to use wheat straw based pulp instead of wood based pulp. So this is excellent from a sustainability point of view because wheat based pulp requires less energy and electricity. As well as that, they will also be the first tissue company in the world to scale up this production facility to actually manufacture the wheat based pulp. So yeah.
Wow.
Was that exciting enough?
How would that work if you were a farmer though? So if you're a farmer, would you rather sell your wheat to Essity or to somebody to make bread, for example?
I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah, I think what they're picking up on is the so a wheat field, the farmer will harvest it as normal, but what's left is those sort of sticks. And when I was young, they used to burn them. Decades. They obviously haven't done that now. But I think it's them picking up that waste from the field, and that then gets delivered. I think I might have misunderstood it, but that's my understanding from what's been on our intranet.
Interesting. I'm surrounded by ideas here, so take a look at those in a new light. Garry, interesting fact.
Interesting, exciting. I think I think it's that. I think what I just mentioned. I'm not sure about Zainab. I think Zainab said she worked in what is it, the flying stuff?
Aerospace company.
Aerospace, yeah, aerospace. I'm not sure about the others. I think the other graduates that I've been talking to for sure have the same or a similar experience, that when you join a large company, it tends to feel like you've kind of dissolved into the numbers, as it were, if you will. I think it's that kind of company where it feels like a small one still. And I always forget how large the actual company is, and I never feel like I'm part of the global initiative, because every time I go to work, everyone will call me by my nickname, and everyone knows your face, even though we've never met in person. And that, for me at least, feels very quite they're in line with the values that Ruth says. Everyone that recruits says that they have nice company values. So when Ruth told me in the interviews, I was like, all right, Ruth, let's everyone says that. But I've not seen anything so far to dispel that impression that she's tried to give from the beginning.
Garry, what's your nickname, love?
Oh yeah.
Is it clean? Hang on, is it clean?
Yeah.
Clean?
Yeah. Not rude.
Oh yeah. No. I thought you were asking if people called me clean, and that's why I work for a tissue company. Yeah.
All right, clean.
How are you doing, clean?
No, it's not an interesting fact. My name is Jed because I have like four official names, and so my official name is Garry, but it's not my actual name in real life, if that makes sense.
I thought it was Gaza.
Yeah, people tend to.
Gaza.
I'm going to, unless Sam and Ruth, if have you got some really exciting facts?
I don't have anything exciting. I don't know. I was just going to say that it, you know, off the top of what Garry said, yeah, even though you definitely feel like you're just in like a 13-person company, it is really international. We've been able to meet with all the other Go graduates that have started all around the world, and you know, luckily and well, it's really good that, you know, I still keep in contact with some of the graduate. I think one of them, she lives in Mexico, another in Germany, and you know, I think it's really cool that you can have, you know, you can build international relationships with so many different people from different cultures, you know, Sweden, Germany, France, Spain, Mexico, the US as well, I think. But, yeah. Company cars are really nice as well. Really nice company cars.
Right, Ruth, final word from you.
I mean, just into, I don't know if it's an interesting fact, but I'm always amazed by is our focus on campaign work as well. So it's not just about sales, but it's about trying to challenge the status quo. So when we look at our work that we've done around period poverty, menstruation, the campaigns have been award-winning. We've really helped drive those conversations and been leaders within those conversations as well. And I think, again, that's reflective of a little bit of our beliefs and behaviours, but it's about that we're doing more than just producing products. We're really trying to help people's health and hygiene globally.
Perfect. Thanks, Ruth. And thanks everybody for joining us today. It's been really insightful, really fun webinar. And I hope that you, the audience, are now interested and really want to work for Essity. So if you are, as I mentioned right at the beginning of the webinar, they are open for their 2 graduate programmes. So don't forget to go on, thoroughly research Essity on GradCracker and put your applications in. Also remember that Ruth looks at every single application, and she would love for you to mention that you've actually watched this webinar and that obviously that you thoroughly enjoyed it, which I'm guessing that you will have done. Let us know how you get on. You know, we're always interested, me and Jess are always interested about your success stories. So let us know how you get on during the application to Essity. If you are not ready to apply to the graduate opportunity just yet, don't forget that you can follow Essity on GradCracker, and then when they reopen next year, you'll get an email and push notification to let you know that it's your time to apply. Don't forget you can rewatch this webinar. So me and Jess are going to go away behind the scenes and brief our copywriter Hannah, and the Essity webinar will actually be live today before close of play, which is 5 o'clock on the Essity Hub. By probably mid next week, we'll have broken up this webinar into bite-sized chunks of little bits of advice. They will also appear on the Essity Hub and on the GradCracker Career Centre. Next week, we are joined by Martin Baker, who is a world leader in design and manufacturing of ejection and crash-worthy seats. I won't be here, but Jessica and Sophie will be chairing that webinar. So looking forward to watching that on the other side. So see you all next week, same time, same place, and have a lovely Easter. And thanks, guys, for joining us today. It's been really informative.
Loved it.
Thank you.
Thanks, GradCracker.
Bye-bye.